Hi everybody, I'm Michelle, and today we're going to be looking at the very first Elder Scrolls game, which was released in 1994 and is called Arena. The development of this game fascinates me because, to start with, it was going to be a medieval gladiator game. The objective was going to be to go with your team and fight against other teams in arenas all around the Empire and eventually become the champion. However, in the process of designing a world that was going to be the backdrop for this contest, they got a little carried away. More and more cities, a little side quests to go into dungeons near these cities, and the main plot eventually shifted entirely and it turned into a full-blown RPG. When the game was first released, they had already printed up all of the material with the title Arena, so they had to kind of retcon a vague explanation as to why the game was called that. Someone randomly came up with the phrase Elder Scrolls because they thought it sounded cool, and then they had to retroactively figure out what it meant. And the cover art for the game was so off-putting that they only released about 3,000 copies to begin with, and distributors were not really keen on it. But players were, and word of mouth went absolutely insane. And the game 2 years later was still being actively played, which at the time in 1994 for a game to have an active player base for 2 years was pretty amazing. So the game gives you the option of generating your character class by asking you a series of questions, but I'm going to skip that because I already know that I want to play a Breton mage. Some of these class names may look familiar all the way to today's Elder Scrolls games. Some of them sort of fell by the wayside along the way. Imperial Valcourt is a Breton woman about 19-20 years of age. She's the oldest of 2 girls, and she has gone to the Imperial city to study painting. She has ambitions to become a famous painter. She's greatly talented in this area, and she has become a sort of a minor member of the Imperial court in Cyrodiil. When not practicing her painting, Muriel has been spending most of her time either flirting with Talon, the captain of the Imperial Guard, or cozying up to Rhea Silmain, who is the apprentice of the Imperial Battle Mage. While Muriel does not consider herself the magical prodigy that her sister Selene is, she wouldn't mind learning a few tricks just to show her up. Everything is going fine until one day all of the various members of the Imperial court are arrested and thrown into the dungeons underneath the palace with no explanation whatsoever. Even worse, while Muriel is slowly wasting away down there, she sees the other members of the court, one by one, being freed from their cells and led out of the prison. She won't find out until much later that they're being led out to be executed. All she knows is that person after person is released, and she is left in the cells, and eventually the guards entirely stop coming.
Do not fear, for it is I, Rhea Silmain. Listen to me. There are no others left to carry on this fight. You have been left in this cell to die. Hagarthar, Imperial Battle, Mage of Tamriel, has taken on the guise of the true Emperor. He does not see you as a threat, being only a minor part of the Imperial court. In that act of arrogance, he has made his first mistake. Look to the north wall of the cell. You will find a ruby key which will unlock the door. Take it and make your escape. The passages here were once used by Tharn to hide treasures he had stolen from the Emperor's coffin. If you wish, you can gather enough to support yourself away from the Imperial seat. Be careful. There are many creatures which inhabit the sewers now, vile rats and goblins. It is too late for me, for I am already dead. Only my powers as a sorceress keep me between this life and the next. That power, however, is waning. Do not succumb to greed, or you may find these tunnels to be your final resting place as well. I can still work my magic to a certain extent. If you travel west from this cell, then south, you will find a shift gate. It will transport you far enough from the center of the Empire that you should be safe. If you survive these sewers, you will see me again. Remember, Tharn has taken on the guise of the Emperor. No one will gainsay his word for yours. I will come to you again in your dreams, so it is imperative that you rest from time to time. In that way, I will be able to communicate with you and lend my aid. You are entering a dangerous arena, my friend, one in which the players are beings beyond your mortal comprehension. I do not envy your role. There is, however, a power within you as yet untapped. Look for me when you have gained experience in the world. You are my last and best hope.
And thus begins the Elder Scrolls tradition of starting off our protagonist in a prison cell. You awaken to the drip of water from somewhere above. The cell walls are covered in slime, as are the chains which hang from above. Your eye, however, immediately goes to a strange ruby glint from the corner of your cell. The corridors here seem twisted and confusing, but Ria's instructions were to go west, then south, to find the shift gate. There's always a bit of loot right outside the cell. Its contents are randomly generated, but this is not a bad haul. Got some good coin. Those plate greaves I can't equip on my character, but they may sell for a decent amount once I get out of here. I do have to be a little bit careful though, because I'm a mage and not very strong, that I don't overburden myself and pick up too many heavy things like plate armor and carry them around. But I should be fine for now. I can carry up to 86 kilograms. And if I want to see how much I'm carrying right now, I can hit S, which shows me my status. And it says I'm only carrying 12. It also gives me the time and the date. So Muriel begins to head west, as instructed, through this very creepy, dark, abandoned prison underneath the Imperial Palace. She's probably starving and thirsty, and she keeps hearing these noises from all around her, and she gets the strangest feeling she's being followed, but she doesn't see anyone. She keeps going and then feels a blade in the back, because a goblin has sneaked up behind her. Luckily, she has a little bit of skill with her dagger and manages to dispatch the creature and heal herself with a little trick she learned somewhere along the way. Now, these raised platforms keep her from being in contact with the draft that runs along the floor, so the rats and things can't catch her scent as she rests. She's such a delicate little flower. It took her 4 hours to recover from one battle with a goblin. She's going to have to toughen up a little. But in reality, this opening dungeon is pretty much guaranteed to kill new players. In the 90s, they considered it, pretty standard practice to really test the player's patience and fortitude with these really challenging initial encounters. The key with this is just to save frequently until you figure out how it all works. If you hit M, you pull up a map of what you've explored so far. A useful thing is that you can use that little quill to actually label portions of the map, and then that helps you get an idea of where you've already been, any noteworthy areas, and so on. This area is a little bit trickier than it may first appear. It is the quickest way to the shift gate to cross this water here, but there are actually 3 goblins on the other side. You can see 2 here. I did find out you can cast spells while swimming, which is pretty cool. The only problem is that at this point I can only cast 1 spell, and there are 3 goblins. And because she's not really designed for physical combat, I think the 3rd one must have sneaked up. Yeah. Once I get reduced to just crossing blades with these guys, I'm in trouble. That 3rd one appears to be stuck behind the gate, so I could, in theory, get somewhere safe and heal, but I'd have to cross the water to do it, and I think swimming is dangerous when you're wounded. Yeah.
With you died our last hope for justice. Tharn is now free to do as he wills. It saddens me to see the beautiful land of Imperial rotting from within. Goodbye. I wish you peace in the afterworld.
Yeah, nothing for it but just to load a saved game. And through the magic of video editing, we can just skip straight to the attempt that actually worked. I figured out that the best use of my spell points was to cast heal on myself, and I'll just do all my fighting with my blade. Also, that was some really stellar RNG action right there. So story-wise, this is a pretty exciting moment for Imperial. She's just defeated 3 goblins using only her piddly little dagger and 1 self-healing spell. Given her current situation, that was probably a much-needed confidence boost. Now that I've gained an experience level, next time I rest, I'm going to get another little visit from Rhea Silmain. But for now, I'm going to dump some more points into intelligence so that I can maybe cast 2 spells before I have to rest now.
I see you have strengthened your arm and your mind. It is time we began this journey. This is the Staff of Chaos, the one item that can open the door between this world and the dimension to which the Emperor has been banished. Tharn used this item to destroy my corporeal form when I tried to warn the Council. He knew that the Staff of Chaos was nigh indestructible, having been made from the essence of the land itself. But in that he found the key. As the land is split, so did he shatter the staff into 8 perfectly formed pieces. These he scattered across the realm. I have been able to divine the location of the first piece, a place called Fang Lair.
Wait for it.
It is said that Fang Lair was originally built by the dwarves of Kragan. Legend has it that a great worm drove the dwarves from their home in the Dragon's Teeth and took the lair for itself. I only wish I knew the exact location. Perhaps there are sages or scholars who would know of this place. Somewhere in its dank depths lies the first piece of the Staff of Chaos. I wish you well. I do not think Thar knows of your escape, but I can do little else in this form. I have tried to obscure your identity with a spell, but I do not know how well it will hide you. Take care, for Tharn may be searching. Go forth with the blessings of the true Emperor, and myself.
Okay, so this is a pretty big milestone here. Good place to save the game. Thanks to this dream in which Rhea Silmain has visited Muriel, she now is beginning to get an idea of the nature of the quest that she must undertake. She's going to have to hunt down all 7 pieces of this Staff of Chaos. And all she has to go on for this first piece is that it is in a place called Fang Lair, which she herself has never heard of. And she'll have to ask around and see if anybody has heard rumors of its location. I think most, if not all, of the arena dungeons have been recreated in Elder Scrolls Online, and of course look vastly different. But it's interesting to contemplate that despite ESO being the most recent Elder Scrolls game, that arena is actually meant to be taking place centuries later. About 700 years to be exact. So if you want to wrap your head around how much time has passed since ESO, imagine modern day as compared to, say, the year 1320 or so. That's how much the events of the Elder Scrolls Online have kind of passed into myth and legend by this point. So it makes sense that a lot of the dungeons that you visit in ESO are now lost. There are still stories about them, but a lot of them are tales probably in the realm of Arthurian legend to these people. The level of technology hasn't advanced as much as it would have on Earth in 700 years, but there have been as many intervening generations. Human lifespans are about the same, and so the stories have kind of faded over all that time. Ahead you can see the shimmering field of the Shift Gate. I've actually made pretty good time through this dungeon this time around. So I feel pretty safe now that I've located the Shift Gate, kind of exploring a little bit further and seeing if I can get just a little bit more experience and maybe a bit more money before I go through the gate. I'm going to mark the location of the Shift Gate just because I like using that feature. Unlike most of the other main story dungeons in this game, this one isn't designed to be explored in its entirety. when Rhea gives you her monologue at the beginning, there are some game tips embedded in there. She says something about don't let greed be your downfall, and that is the developer's way of hinting to you that you should not try to plunder every single corner of this dungeon, that you should maybe just find the shift gate and get out. But at the same time, you want to balance the idea of getting what you can out of the dungeon and being as well prepared as you can be before you start the game. So it's up to each player really how far you want to wander from the shift gate and how much you want to risk getting trapped in a situation where you can't find your way to a safe resting spot and just die continually on a loop. I think at this point Muriel is probably pretty desperate to see the light of day. She's probably missing the Imperial city, but she knows that's not safe anymore. And so the next place her thoughts will turn, obviously, is home, where she grew up, where she came from. Now Muriel, as a Breton, like most Bretons, has grown up in the land of High Rock, which is to the northwest of Tamriel. I don't know those of you who are massive Elder Scrolls fans and who have played Elder Scrolls Online maybe, and have seen the entire map of Tamriel many, many times. You may have noticed how close the map in this game at the beginning is to the map they continue to use for the rest of the series. A lot of the city names are the same and are in similar places, as you'll see later. All the provinces are approximately the same shape and in the same place, and what changes there are can largely be explained by just the way borders shift in history. There may even be some changes in the shape of coastlines in 700 years. But Muriel's family, the Valcourts, have been established in the city of Daggerfall for many, many generations. Gotta love that generic 90s level up sound. Players of the original EverQuest might recognize that one. Well, hello there, gorgeous. What even is that thing? A lizard man of some kind. I mean, we could say it's some kind of feral Argonian, but that gets a little complicated, as we'll find out a little bit later on in the game. So the story of Muriel's family is that many, many, many generations ago, let's say around 700 years ago or so, a farmer of some kind, whose name is listed variously in the legends but is mostly agreed upon as Alexander Valcourt, kind of rose up out of nowhere and ended up defeating the schemes of an incredibly powerful necromancer by the name of Manamarco. And Alexander Valcourt supposedly defeated this evil necromancer and was granted lands and a title and lots of money. And ever since then, his descendants have lived in Daggerfall in prosperity, and their name is a very old and respected one by this point. But these days, the Valcourts aren't very heroic in nature. They've been resting on their laurels for a long time. They are primarily worshippers of Dibella, who is goddess of beauty and art, and also sex and romance, and so they're a bit on the vain side, a little superficial maybe, but basically good people. The Daggerfall that Muriel has grown up in is probably quite a bit different from the one 700 years previous that we see in ESO, but we can assume that High Rock is largely the same place. Gloomy weather, lots of gray stone everywhere, and forests in the wilderness. A nice dreary, damp climate. The other major city in High Rock is Wayrest, which is located somewhat to the east of Daggerfall, which is on the very western end of the peninsula. Muriel is probably feeling a bit nervous right now because Rhea told her that the shift gate would take her far enough away from the Imperial city to be safe, but she didn't say where exactly it leads. And Muriel hasn't had a lot of experience traveling all around Tamriel. In the Third Era, which is where we are in Tamriel's history right now, there is not a lot of really easy travel across the Empire. Especially at this point in time, people are mostly traveling on horseback over land. Back in Alexander Valcourt's day, there are probably still legends remaining of a time when people could magically zap themselves from one end of the continent to the other, but no more. Is that the glint of gold I see? Let's make sure nothing's going to sneak up behind me while I loot that. 91 gold pieces, not bad. This seems like a quit while I'm ahead moment to me. So yeah, up to this point, Muriel has not seen much of Tamriel at all. She may have traveled a little bit around western High Rock, and then she may have had to cross part of Hammerfell on horseback to get to the Imperial city, and then of course she's seen the Imperial province, but again mostly passing through on horseback. And so she probably feels a little bit of trepidation at being somewhere where she is not only unfamiliar with the landscape and the people, but they're not familiar with her either, and she can't exactly use her name as a way of presenting herself or gaining respect, because she's supposed to be traveling anonymously. I am going to go ahead and save before leaving because this is a one-way portal. If I ever have regrets about leaving the dungeon before looting all of it, I would have to go back to this save to try again. And she's in High Rock. She would know that fog anywhere. She is not familiar with the town of Carthgrin Vale, but she knows she's at least somewhat close to home, and she'll blend in around here. So in the next video, we'll find out how she's going to get by in this new town, and how she's going to equip herself for this massive task that she's been asked to undertake. See you next time.